Hey everybody, now that we've worked a little bit with HTML tags and attributes and values, we can start affecting the style and overall design of our web page. That way we can make it look a little bit nicer and focus a little bit on design. The way we're going to do that is through another language called CSS. It stands for Cascading Style Sheet. And really what they are meant to do is link a file in your head to a style sheet, which really determines all of the colors and paddings and margins and things like that for your whole entire website. The idea is that every HTML page that's attached to that one style sheet will be affected by the same styles. That way every page of your website has the same colors, the same paddings, the same overall style. And what really is happening is that style is cascading throughout all of the pages on your site. And so that's why it's called CSS Cascading Style Sheet. Now, we're only working with one HTML page, but typically in most websites you'll have like thousands of pages in some cases. And when you make one change to that style sheet, it cascades throughout all the entire branding of your website. And that's what we're going to deal with here, the styles.css file. Now, right now you see that it says H1. And that's the element that it's affecting. So all H1s, you'll see also these curly brackets. What that's doing is instead of having the angle brackets that we had in HTML, we're now working with curly brackets. And then this is not an attribute, but it is a property. And this is a property that's specific to CSS, and there are multiple properties that we'll talk about in lecture this week that can affect different elements. And then this, of course, is a value. Just like you have attributes and values, here you have properties and values. Now, we're not dealing with equal signs and quotes anymore. We're dealing with colons and semicolons, and punctuation is just as important as spelling things correctly. So you'll notice that we're dealing with different syntax and different semantics at work here. So what I have for you in this week's module is I want you to take the sample style sheet template that I have here and go ahead and copy all that code. Just do a Command C to copy it, and then we're going to paste it in here. Instead of using what they have, we're going to use our own. Right now it kind of reformatted it, and you'll see that really nothing has changed because I've got my body tag and my properties, but there are no values listed here. I've kind of set it up so that you can type in your own colors, your own fonts, your own things like that, and even add your own properties as well. So what I'd like for you to do is just kind of experiment a little bit with it. So if we want to take our body, which is all the visible content in our site, notice that each one of these are tags basically, but there's no brackets around them. These are just ways that we can tell the browser what to affect. So the body, in this case, we can choose a color for the body. So you can either type in a word like green, or you can also type in a hexadecimal code, which we'll talk about this week as well. Now what you'll notice is it actually turned all of the font green. Okay, so the color property affects the fonts, all the fonts in the body. Now the background color affects your actual background color, obviously. And I can go ahead and make this blue. Now what I can also do, this is probably going to look pretty bad. Yeah, green on blue does not look great. You want to pick colors that will contrast a little bit more. But you can also pick hexadecimal codes, and it's got a little color picker in here, which is kind of nice, that you can, choose the colors that you want in RGB and A, which is the how much opacity it has. You can also type in hexadecimal codes with a pound sign and start typing in some letters and numbers everywhere between 0 and F, which we'll talk more about in class as well. So I'm just going to come up with a random 6-digit color code, and it's a kind of a blue color, I suppose. Oh, it's more of a green, bright green on green. Okay, but you'll notice that you can type in words here just as well as you could type in hexadecimal codes, and we'll talk again more about that in class. Now also we're dealing with font families, and so you can make rules for how your entire website displays fonts. And font families are everything from the font Arial, and that is what's called a sans serif font. And you'll notice that as soon as I type that in here, I click over here, my fonts all change. All the headings, all the paragraphs, every piece of text will all be Arial. And we'll talk about this again in lecture, but you can build a hierarchy of levels. So if they don't have the Arial font, you can try Helvetica. And I'll go ahead and write that. And then if they don't have that, we can just do sans serif. What that's going to do is first it's going to look for the Arial font on their computer. Not everyone has that font. I mean, it's a very web-safe font, but in some cases it may not have it. Then it'll go to Helvetica. If it doesn't find that one, then it will just do any sans serif font that that user has on their computer. And you'll notice that not every website will look exactly the same on everyone's device, and that's part of the web designer's job, is to make their fonts and their styles and everything the most useful for everyone with every different device. So we try to pick web-safe, what's called web-safe fonts that pretty much everyone has. If you pick some random font that you downloaded, there's not a good chance that they will have it on their system and they will not see your website the way that you want them to see it. And then we have font size, and so you could kind of think of this as like when you're working in Word and you have like a 72 point font. 72 pixels, px, will be the number of roughly about the same kind of look and feel that that would have in a Word document. So that's a lot. So, but what that did is it forced all of my text to be 72, which is way too big. But what we're going to do is just pick a smaller number here, 12 pixels, and that's going to be a base font size for our entire website. And we can change specific things here. Of course, we want our H1s, our headings, to be a little bit much larger actually than the paragraphs. And so when we're talking about font size, we really want all of our H1s to be much larger than just 12. So we can pick a different word number here, 42px, I'll say. And now you can see my H1 is much larger and very different than my paragraph. So here we're just making overall rules for anything that's in the body, but then you can hone down into specific elements and further describe and define those things. So you can pick things like styles. There are different styles that you could add here, and you can hover over here like oblique and italic. So if you did want to, let's just make him italic, you'll see here that it italicized it. Font weight, this is referring to how bold you want it, and these values go from 0 to 800, and so 800 is the most bold it could possibly be, and then we'll just see what 100 looks like. It's going to be a lot thinner, okay? And you could either do any value from 0 to 800, or you could also do just the word bold there, and it will make it bold. That's the equivalent of saying probably about 500 or so, 400. Text decoration, that's where we can do underline, which I don't recommend making your H1s underlined, because in the web world, usually when something's underlined, it indicates it's a link, and this is not a link, and so I probably don't want any kind of a decoration there. I'll do a none on that one. And then we can also add those separate things for P1s. A quick word on the H1. Now, these are only relating to the H1s that you list. If you have an H2, you will have to define that in the CSS as well. Or if you have an H3 or an H4 or any other tag that's a heading, the H1 only affects H1s. You'll notice that my H2 here is still at a 12 pixel because I have not further defined it. So what I would recommend you do is take that, all the definitions of the H1, copy that, and I'll paste it right below it, and now I can make specific definitions for my H2, and maybe I want my H2 to be something like 24 pixels, so it's still larger than my paragraph, but it is differentiated from my H1. So you can kind of fill these in and give it your own values, and then also look up some other attributes that might not be listed in this tutorial, and other tags that we have not really used in the template but you might want to use would be maybe your image. You could add an image tag as well. So I can go ahead and I'll do that at the very bottom here. IMG. All I'm saying is for the images, I can add those curly brackets, and I'll do, let's say, padding. Say I wanted to add padding around the top right, bottom, and left of this image. I'll do a padding 10px, semicolon. Okay, so in CSS talk, you have to have the colon because that is going to offset your value. Once you have the value, you have to put the semicolon at the end to show it that you're done with that value. Now I can go over here and you'll see that there's padding now. Maybe too much, maybe not enough, all on the top, bottom, and left and right of my image. So you might want to experiment with that a little bit. Now here I've got my A tag. If you remember from our tutorial, the A tag is the link, an anchor. Okay, so if I go down to my link, this A tag says A, and then my attribute is href. But this really is an A tag opening, and then the A tag closes. So A tags relate to any link that you see, any link that you have. So you can make your links a certain color that is different from your main body color or your paragraph color. In this case, the browser's already making it dark blue, and most browsers will just interpret any link as dark blue. But you can type in the word black, and it would make all of your links black. And you can also type in a hexadecimal code here, or gray, or any other color that you want, or hex code. You can also make your text decoration underlined. Now that's up to you. If you want it to be underlined, then it's going to be there. If you said none, then there will be no underline. Okay, you don't see the underline there. But maybe you want it to, when you hover over it, maybe you want it to underline. And so you don't just have the A tags, but you've got a visited. What that means is once you have visited the link, in some cases you want to indicate to the user they've already been to that site. So you might want to make it a different color. In other cases, when you activate the link, meaning when you click on it, it could change a color or do something unique. And then a hover. What that's going to do is when you hover over it, it will change. And so we can say maybe when the A tag naturally is just sitting there, it's going to be gray, but when we hover over it, we can make it black. And then we can add text decoration to underline it. And so now when I go over here, refresh my page, you'll see that it is gray, but when I hover over it, it's black and underlined. So this is the power of CSS, where any new rule you make will not just affect that one element, but if any link on my page will be affected, any image on my page would have that padding. And you can start kind of working through building out your web page to make it a little bit more stylized. Now I also want you to be encouraged to go out and find other CSS codes out there. So I could just do CSS and I can type in W3 schools. That's a really great website, lots of tutorials on any language that you want to, but you've got CSS fonts and links and lists and tables and all these different CSS effects. This is kind of a cool one, text effects or shadows. And if you want to learn more about each one of these and you want to kind of experiment, then that's what this site is for. It offers lots of different tutorials, and here's one on text shadow. So I could just take this code, 2 pixel by 2 pixel text shadow. I could copy that. Notice that it is within these brackets, and this is just a property with values. I could go ahead and go into my H1, add a new property with these values, and it should work. It should inherit, and you can see it does work. It has a shadow on it. So you might want to experiment with other codes that are out there, other, even tooltips. What that means is when you hover your mouse over something, it might do some kind of special stylized feature, buttons and things like that. So feel free to go and experiment with what's out there and have fun with it and make it look a little bit nicer.